Most people see a nine-tailed fox and think of a level 38 Ninetales, or a sealed demon and a ninja. But the real Ninetales isn't a monster to be captured. It's a story of a mother's heartbreak. Centuries before video games, there was Kuzunoha. She wasn't a fire type. She was mist, memory, and a love so deep it defied the laws of the spirit world. Today, we are honoring the fox of Shinoda. I'll show you how to use Ohuhu Markers for a soft focused background that feels like the Heian period dream, and how to use Prismacolor's pencils to layer white on white fur without losing form. We are building a legend, tale by tale. Before we put pen to paper, we need to see the world she lived in. This is the tragedy of Abe no Yasuna and the fox who became his wife.
In the twilight years of the 10th century, during the reign of Emperor Murakami, the air of the Heian capital was thick with the scent of incense and the quiet desperation of fallen men. Among them was Abe no Yasuna, a young nobleman of the once proud Abe clan. His family, once masters of the celestial arts and advisors to the throne, had been stripped of their lands and titles, victims of a cruel deception by con men that left Yasuna with nothing but his name and a burning desire to restore his lineage. Every day, Yasuna traveled away from the crumbling walls of the capital toward the Izumi province, where the ancient forest of Shinoda stood as a verdant cathedral. Within that forest lay a shrine to Inari Okami, the deity of rice and prosperity. Yasuna believed that only through divine intervention could he rebuild his family's house. He walked the path to the shrine with a heavy heart, offering prayers to the silent stone foxes that guarded the torii gates, their red bibs fluttering in the mountain breeze. He did not seek gold for himself. He sought the restoration of the honor his father had lost. The Shinoda forest was a place of liminality, where the boundary between the human world and the spirit realm was as thin as the paper of a shoji screen. As Yasuna knelt before the shrine, the wind through the cedars seemed to carry the voices of the kami, and the shadows of the kudzu leaves shifted like the restless spirits of the wood. Little did he know that his piety had not gone unnoticed by the celestial residents of the grove. One afternoon, as the sun began its descent behind the jagged peaks, a frantic rustle broke the stillness of the shrine's path. A white fox, a byakko of pure, snow-colored fur, leaped from the thicket and collapsed at Yasuna's feet. Its side was bloodied, and its golden eyes were wide with terror. Before Yasuna could speak, a group of hunters burst through the undergrowth, led by a man whose face was etched with greed. The hunter demanded the fox, claiming its liver was a necessary ingredient for a powerful medicine. Yasuna, recognizing the creature as a sacred messenger of Inari, stood his ground. He knew that to spill the blood of a white fox within these woods was a sacrilege that would haunt a man for 7 lifetimes. A fierce struggle ensued. Yasuna was no warrior, but he fought with the desperation of a man protecting his last shred of faith. He was badly wounded in the fray, but his defiance bought the fox enough time to vanish into the deep shadows of the kudzu vines. Days later, while Yasuna lay in a feverish state at his home, a woman of ethereal beauty appeared at his door. She called herself Kuzunoha. Her movements were fluid, her voice like the chime of a temple bell, and her presence brought a strange, cooling peace to his stifling room. She claimed to be a traveler from the local village, moved by his plight. She nursed him with such tenderness that his wounds healed faster than any physician could explain. In the months that followed, their bond deepened. Yasuna found in Kuzunoha a partner whose wisdom and grace seemed to lift the curse of his family's misfortune. They married, and the house of Abe began to thrive once more, as if the very spirits of the earth were blessing their union. Soon a son was born, a boy named Doji, though the world would later know him as Abe no Seimei. The child was preternaturally intelligent, with eyes that seemed to perceive the flow of chi in the air and the secrets of the birds in the trees. For 6 years, they lived in a state of perfect domestic harmony, a small island of joy in a changing world. The 6th year of their marriage arrived on a day of golden autumn light. The garden was a riot of color, dominated by the blooming chrysanthemums that Kuzunoha loved so dearly. The air was crisp, and a light fox rain, a sun shower, began to fall from a cloudless blue sky, a phenomenon the locals called Kitsune no Yomeiri. Kuzunoha was in the garden, caught in a moment of pure, unshielded bliss. She breathed in the heavy scent of the flowers, her mind drifting to the ancient forests of her youth. In this profound relaxation, her concentration wavered. The magical glamour she had maintained for 6 years, the human mask she wore for love, began to fray at the edges. Young Doji, now 5 years old, was playing nearby. He called out to his mother, wanting to show her a stone he had found. As Kuzunoha turned to smile at him, she did not realize that a long, bushy white tail had slipped from beneath the hem of her silk kimono. The boy stopped. His eyes, already gifted with the second sight of his heritage, did not see a woman. He saw the flickering shadow of a great celestial fox cast against the paper doors of their home. "Mother," the boy whispered, his finger pointing toward the ground. "You have a tail." The world seemed to stop. Kuzunoha looked down, and the horror of the discovery washed over her like ice. In Japanese folklore, the moment a supernatural being's true form is witnessed by a human, the bond of their physical coexistence is irrevocably severed. The illusion was broken. She was no longer the wife of a nobleman. She was the Bayako of Shinoda, a spirit of the wild who had stayed too long in the world of men. The evening that followed was one of unbearable silence. Yasuna returned home to find Kuzunoha standing by the shoji screen, her eyes filled with a grief that spanned centuries. She did not need to explain. The air in the room hummed with the energy of the spirit world, calling its messenger home. "My love," she said, her voice trembling, "I am the fox you saved in the woods of Shinoda. I took this form to repay my debt, but I stayed because my heart became human. But now that our son has seen my true face, I can no longer remain. To stay would be to bring a curse upon this house." Yasuna begged her to stay, offering to shutter the windows and hide her from the world. But Kuzunoha knew the laws of the yokai were absolute. She took a brush in her mouth, a traditional gesture of the Kitsune, and began to write upon the silk of the sliding screen. Her tears blurred the ink as she composed her final message to the family she was forced to abandon. The poem she left is one that would be recited for 1,000 years. Koishi kuba, tazune kite mio. Izumi naru Shinoda no mori no Urami Kuzunoha. If you love me, darling, come and see me. You will find me yonder in the great wood of Shinoda of Izumi province, where the leaves of the kudzu always show their undersides. With a final, lingering look at her sleeping son, Kuzunoha stepped out into the garden. As she crossed the threshold, her human form dissolved into a mist of white fur and golden light. A magnificent white fox leapt over the garden wall and vanished into the darkness, leaving only the scent of chrysanthemums and the sound of a distant, lonely yelp.
In the morning, Yasuna and Doji set out for the Izumi province. They traveled with a singular focus, following the instructions of the poem. When they reached the deep heart of the Shinoda forest, near the very shrine where they had first met, the air grew thick with a familiar, sweet fragrance. Kuzunoha appeared to them one last time. She did not take her human form, for that path was closed to her, but stood as a grand white fox, her fur radiating a soft, celestial glow. She spoke to them not with words, but directly into their minds. She told Yasuna that their son was destined for greatness, for he carried the blood of both the celestial and the terrestrial. As a parting gift, she presented them with two treasures: a crystal ball that held the wisdom of the ages, and a golden box containing the secrets of the spirit world. To her son, she gave a final blessing, the ability to understand the language of the birds and the beasts, and the power to command the spirits of the earth. "Go now," she signaled, her eyes lingering on the boy. "The house of Abe shall never fall again." Yasuna and his son watched as the white fox merged into the white bark of a great tree and disappeared. They returned to the capital, and as Kuzunoha had promised, the boy grew to be Abe no Seimei, the most powerful onmyoji in the history of Japan. He used the gifts of his mother to protect the emperor and maintain the balance between the light and the dark. Though Seimei became a legend and his father, Yasuna, restored the family's glory, it is said that every autumn, when the kudzu leaves turn their silver undersides to the wind, two figures could be seen walking the paths of Shinoda. They were not looking for spirits or demons, but for the shadow of a mother and a wife who had loved them enough to leave them behind. The legend of Kuzunoha remains a testament to the idea that love, even when born of magic and bound by tragedy, is the only force capable of bridging the world of men and the world of the gods.
We start with the Ohuhu Markers. I'm blocking in the trunk of this ancient cherry tree first because of it's our anchor. For the rolling hills, I'm using a graded wash technique. I want the greens to feel damp, like the Izumi province after a sun shower. In the myth, the Shinoda forest wasn't just a place, it was a boundary. By laying these soft green bases, we are creating the chi of the landscape. Unlike the bright, saturated colors of the Pokémon map, we are looking for the Yamato stylized, soft, and slightly melancholic. This is the hardest part, drawing something white on a light background. I'm using cool grays to define the musculature. The trick is negative definition. I'm not drawing fur, I'm drawing the shadows between the fur. If you go too dark, it looks like a gray fox. We need her to look like light itself. Kuzunoha's 9 tails represent her power. But in this moment, they represent her burden. As I layer these pencils, think about the number 9. In Japanese numerology, it is the highest single digit, the point of transition. She is at the peak of her power, yet she is completely alone, overlooking the valley where her human life ended. Now I'm coming back to the tree trunk, with dark browns and blacks to create dramatic contrast. For the background hills, I'm using colorless blender to soften the marker strokes into a mist effect. Then we focus on the temple, but distant enough to feel like a memory Yashuna might be walking through right now. The temple represents the structure of the human world, the world Kuzunoha can no longer enter. By blurring the hills but keeping the temple slightly defined, we visually show the distance between her and her family. Finally, the cherry blossoms. Each petal is a dot of life. I'm letting them overlap the sky to create depth. The sky isn't just blue. It has a hint of gold from the Kitsune. And there she is, Kuzunoha, the white fox of Shinoda. We've traveled from the initial marker strokes to a 1,000-year-old heartbreak. In the end, the real Ninetales isn't about the fire she can breathe or the battles she can win. It's about the legacy she left behind in her son, Seimei. Every time those cherry blossoms fall in the Shinoda woods, the legend says she's still there, watching over the valley. I want to hear from you. Now that you've seen the tragedy behind the myth, does it change how you look at the Ninetale characters in your favorite shows? Drop a comment below and let me know which version of the fox myth is your favorite. The classic legend or the modern reimagining. I will read every single one of your stories. If you enjoyed this deep dive from markers to myth, hit the like button. It really helps the spirits of the algorithm find this channel. And if you want to see which ancient legend we're going to bring to life next, hit the subscribe, and ring that bell. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and we'll see you in the next episode.